but you can see all those videos that are like, let's rank every subclass of fighter. And I always look at that and it's just like, you couldn't create content that I'm less interested in engaging with than that. I don't think I've ever seen two players when given that situation saying like, oh, I want to roll too. And okay, great. One of you has advantage and is getting help from the other. So one of you roll with advantage. That's always, for me, that's a little Easter egg opportunity that I'm putting in front of these two players. Nobody's ever chosen the right door. And the right door is Construct has a question in Discord. Well, we can team up on this one. Construct asks, how do you deal with min-max players? Do you have many min-max players?
I've had one that was actually what you'd consider be like an actual min-maxer.
Mm-hmm.
And I would min-max him back.
Okay. All right.
But that's the type of person he was.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, it's fair to say that the tricky thing about having players that are motivated by that stuff at the table is that unless everybody is, it creates a weird dynamic. It creates a weird situation where it feels like you've got, like, everybody finds different interests in the game. Some people are really into the role play, some people get excited for combat, blah 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 blah. That's fair. But when somebody is trying to sort of it is so focused on kind of the one set of mechanics to the detriment of all the other ones, that can kind of throw things, I think, in a little weird way. I don't think I know how to balance that. I mean, I think you just have to, and I think somebody in the Discord even identified it. Like, for me, it's if I play with a min maxer and like if I run for them in a one shot, I'm mentally going like, probably not going to run for this person again. If I have them in my campaign, I'll deal with it, for the campaign or whatever. And it's not because I don't like it. It's because I don't think that I'm a good DM for those types of players. Like, it just doesn't seem like a good fit. Like, they're probably going to not have as much fun in my game as they would in somebody's game that's more geared toward that.
Yeah, I think if it's more people just picking things that sound cool,
right?
And like to fit an idea they have, if everyone's on that kind of thing, even if someone's not even min-max, but they just pick things. But that's also too where you just it depends. You either have a group of everyone that just they don't care how much their character, quote unquote sucks,
right?
Versus you get they just want to fulfill a certain idea. Versus then you kind of have the middle party where it's people have an idea, they obviously pick like the good perks or the good feats, that help make their character better.
Yeah.
And then you have the person that's optimized every single roll.
Yeah.
That they could ever make. And I feel like most people fit into somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Like one of my players is in the Tomb, or the formerly Tomb of Annihilation game, is a ranged barbarian.
Okay.
So it was kind of the whole idea behind it, and then he took took feats and stuff and a couple magic items that fit that. And I don't count that as min-maxing, as more of just he's got a niche and he's sticking with it.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, the one player was a big min-maxer, and luckily it was all people we knew pretty well, and everyone would just basically say, "Shut up, Ben." His name was Ben.
Sure. Well, it's I guess when I think about min-maxers, it's basically people who are making decisions about their character and about both how they play their character, most importantly, probably how they level up, but also the things that they gather from the perspective of what's going to make number go up. Like, what's going to make this the quote unquote best version that it possibly can be. Like there are all those videos out there, and I can't say that I've really ever watched them because they just but you could, they're very popular. So I know that at the very least people are willing to sort of dip their toes into min max territory when they're considering options. Like maybe that's how most people engage with it, is just to get a sense of it. But you can see all those videos that are like, let's rank every subclass of fighter. And I always look at that and it's just like, I can't, you couldn't create content that I'm less interested in engaging with than that, because it's like, how do you even evaluate? Like, I don't know. I think I'm engaging with subclasses differently than people who are looking to understand it and rank it that way. Because obviously, all that you can really rank things based on is like, well, what gives you more things to do, or what gives you more power, or more number go up and less number go down. And it's like, whenever I'm thinking about subclasses with players, it's like, well, what fits the idea of this character the best? You know, maybe we have to create a subclass for them, but that's why I say if somebody is always thinking that way, it's like I probably am. I'm going to frustrate them. They're going to frustrate me on a long enough timeline, you know.
And I think a lot of it comes from the 2014 rule. I mean, 22. I mean, the min max, third edition, where there were so many books, and the power creep just kept coming and coming and coming and coming.
Yeah, maybe.
And they kind of kept the power creep down in 5e, and then 2024. Besides the Ranger still sucks.
Why does the Ranger suck?
Let's say you're gonna sit down and you got your players and you're like, all right, everyone, we're playing this level 1 through 20, one level every month, right? And everyone's like, cool. The wizard's like, I'm gonna be a wizard. And at level 20, so the final, month of the campaign or whatever, they get what was it? They get a signature spell that they can cast these 3 spells twice a day with however they want to do it. In the the warlocks, what they get, Eldritch Master, this and this. Barbarians get like +5 or something to con up to 20, whatever. And then the Ranger's like, Hunter's Mark is a D10 now instead of a D6. Not to brag, guys, but Foe Slayer. Yeah, the damage is your Hunter's Mark is a D10 rather than a D6.
Gotcha.
I get to do 5 damage on average extra.
Yeah.
At level 20 and not 3.
Yeah, not very exciting.
And then like they've had some weird subclasses.
Okay.
That aren't they're thematically cool. They just don't have as many features. Like I think the Undying or whatever from the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide lets you literally take the arm of a goblin or the hand or leg or whatever appendage and cut your zone off and replace it with that.
Wow.
Which that's thematically is cool.
That's a vibe, yeah.
But that's like the coolest thing it can do.
Gotcha. Well, it's funny because I was about to say, like, I think players have a hard time, identifying and engaging with like the tropes of a ranger. Like, what's the inspiration for this class in general? Like, if we look at comic books and movies and TV, like, where are we finding this in fiction that we can connect it to? And then I'm thinking that like that's what I think is the problem. You're like, so anyway, this new subclass lets you graft monster parts to yourself. I'm like, now I know even less about who this is supposed to sort of mirror, right? Or who it's supposed to sort of point at.
And that was for a warlock, not a ranger.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
But just some of
that makes more sense. I was thinking, damn, that is, even though honestly for a ranger, I guess that'd
be a cool ranger.
Maybe my mind associated because you're talking about like hunting and like monster parts or like the remains and like foraging or whatever. So Eli, min max, I'm probably not going to get a very good like exact definition of it, but typically it means that a min maxer is a player who's looking to minimize the bad things, quote unquote bad things about their character, and maximize the good things. So what that means is that if they're going to play a fighter, we might, in the cool kids table where we all are, right, where we're all thinking about characters and deeply about like the lore and like motivations and all this stuff, we might look at subclasses and go, okay, well, this feels like, I think Battle Master feels like the thing that I would, and a min-maxer is going to look and go, well, I've ranked all of the subclasses by which benefits happen the earliest, and I can see that I can get a plus. I can get a knight if I run the champion, and if I subclass later into this other, I'm going to dual class fighter subclass. Like, they're just thinking a totally different way about the game, and it's fine to have like a dose of that here and there because that strategy can be kind of fun, but yeah,
Or
minimum effort, maximum rewards. That's a good way to put it.
I can't remember the exact one, but it's Sorlock. So you multi-class Sorlock and
Sorcerer
and Warlock. Paladin, you take a dip into this to get this, and they kind of fixed it a bit with the 24 because now all the subclasses come at third level no matter what. So you can't just dip in there and say, cool, now I have a patron and I can do this, and then I'm gonna take another dip into this to get this.
It's almost like if you're going if you're gonna sit down for lunch with a friend and they're like ordering from like a secret menu that you aren't aware of that isn't published, where they're like, no, you're not doing this right. And it's impressive, but it's also like, how much time do you spend? Like, how do you research? How do you find all this stuff out? About like, how to get just the best spread, how to get the best everything. Yeah, it's a thing. I think people, I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think there's a way to kind of play mechanically like that, and there's probably a lot of fun to be had. I can't. I don't think I'm any good at it. So. Dump stats. Oh, for sure. Yeah, dump stats are going to be another technique. Not caring about.
Charisma's. Mm-hmm. Charisma's worthless, intelligence worthless.
Right, even though it's like, well, wait,
I don't need strength's worthless.
Shouldn't we be building sort of a rounded character here with these different things? And it's just gonna that doesn't register. That's not part of the equation typically.
Versus being like, I'm gonna make a charismatic fighter who's woos the trees in the forest. And do it this way. It's like, nope, I fight. I don't need intelligence. I don't need charisma.
Yeah, sometimes
I hit things
sometimes
as much.
Sometimes I think a trait of players that play that way is they will like actively disengage from things that they've determined their character can't help with. And I think this is a bad tendency that everybody can slip into from time to time, but you'll hear them be like, "Oh, what is this? Is this a puzzle?" My character goes to sit in the corner and wait or whatever, because it's like if it's not their thing, they just don't even engage with it. And
side tangent to that.
Well, I was just gonna say, and the versus like it's always exciting to me when players are willing to sort of like having faults as a character is interesting too. Like it's fun to be able to design a character and go, and I'm embracing the fact that this is like a weakness, and that's exciting. To have like an imperfect character and like what that's going to mean for the game, that would be a hard conversation to have with a min-maxer. Go ahead. Sorry, what's your tangent?
If you have let's say you have a barbarian with terrible history, and you have a wizard's like, can I roll history on this type of desert worm?
Yeah.
And your barbarian has a desertish kind of background, and you have him. He wants to roll history too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you set a different DC for each of them? Like in your head?
Okay, so we've got there's a it depends a little bit. So for the because it sounds like what you're describing is a situation where one of the characters is asking about information and I'm going to call out a history check, and then somebody else is going to try to like jump on board that too, right? They want to do it also. I'll just assume for the sake of the question that both of them have access to the history, because that's going to be the first thing, is that not every history check is going to be relevant to every, like, for one of them, it's like you just don't have this history to look into. Like if you're, but let's
Yeah.
assume that there's crossover. How would I go about it? I would probably, I could do it I could see it two ways. And I think they would probably ultimately be the same, but depending on the situation, I might lean more towards one or the other. So one way I would go is to say, okay, one of you is going to help the other. Who's going to do the role with advantage, right? In other words, they're putting their heads together. They're going to they're going to take an aside. They're talking through and they're helping each other find the answer. The other way to do it is I let them both roll, and I basically create a DC that's basically an average of their two rolls anyway, which is going to be a little bit different. Everybody likes to roll, so probably letting everybody roll is more fun. But it is also interesting to see them because that'll. I don't think I've ever seen two players when given that situation saying like, "Oh, I want to roll too," and like, "Okay, great." One of you has advantage and is getting help from the other, so one of you roll with advantage. That's always, for me, that's a little Easter egg opportunity that I'm putting in front of these two players. Nobody's ever chosen the right door, and the right door is which one of them has more of a connection, is more likely to remember this. No, they all choose the other door. They say, well, which one of us has the better stat, and then that's how they determine it every single time. So everybody's a min-maxer in certain situations, even if it's like, is that really like what we should be doing here? Because once characters or once players are sort of comparing the stats of their things to try to decide something, it's like, I'm not even sure what we're doing at that point. Like it doesn't really narratively make sense. It's all metagaming, which is a little bit meh. What about you? How would you handle
that? Sometimes it'll just be like you help that one, or I'll describe it as that. So like last night we had the wizard wanted to know, what do I know about this desert or something like that, and they got high intelligence. So I'm like, okay. And then the barbarian doesn't necessarily have a connection to the desert, but backstory stuff, blah blah blah. And I don't, if I have a set DC, like let's say for the wizard the DC would be 15 because it's a little bit more obscure, but it's nothing super crazy. 15 when you have a +5 to intelligence is a lot easier to hit when the barbarian has a -2.
right?
So then I'm like, with the barbarian, if they got this connection to this, this desert, hypothetically, I would make the DC 10 because it's less uncommon knowledge for them.
Yeah.
But even in some cases, last night in particular, the barbarian and the wizard, the barbarian rolled really high with a -2. He had I think he rolled an 18.
Mm-hmm.
So he rolled a 17 because he rolled a 19 with a -2. And Sarah rolled, I don't know, pick a big intelligence number because her intelligence is 5 plus proficiency, I don't know, 26.
Yeah, a lot. And
I was like, okay, so the barbarian, you were describing the right thing in the wrong way. And then the wizard comes in and kind of fills in the blanks and flips words around to make it make sense.
Yep.
The worms live in the sky, and they're like, nope, they live in the ground. But they like right premise, wrong details.
Yeah. It's like they have an understanding. It's a bit of like a cargo cult understanding. It's not really correct necessarily, but you can see where they're coming from. Like there's logic there.
My one same barbarian player was kind of a while back was kind of not annoyed, but kind of felt a little worthless outside of combat in a lot of situations.
Okay.
And I was like, buddy, you convinced me that you can use strength or constitution for that skill check. You can swap it in. It's in the book.
Right.
Because the barbarians have a thing where while they're raging, they can do that.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, that's for that. So that's you telling me you're going to use strength for your perception roll. You don't have to justify it. But if you can justify how you're using strength to, obviously intimidation's an easy one.
Sure.
But if you're using strength or whatever for this, and you can give me a good reason, heck yeah, I'll roll with it. And you can, switch out the pluses.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, generally I do the same, although that makes me think of, let's see. So I've planned a chase sequence for next week for my island game, my island campaign next week. Oh, I don't have it in here, but I'm doing something different for the chase scene, which is to there's like a kind of a branching path, and it's like different. They're running through the jungle, they run into quicksand. How do they get out of it? Or no, they run into snakes and have to avoid all these different situations. But rather than give them these situations and let them puzzle out how to resolve it, I've basically pre-selected the skill check, and so the challenge to the group is somebody has to do this skill check, but the group knows that, I mean, all skill checks that I do, everybody has to do one before they can come back to it. So in this case, it's trying to like lean into the metagaming a little bit in a way that's like, okay, somebody's going to have to pull themselves out of the quicksand. So here's like an athletics check, and everybody's inevitably going to be looking at their stats to try to determine who's the best person to do that. But it's also like, well, but we don't know what we might need for these next 4 checks, right, before we come back around to this person. So is that good, or is somebody got a decent one? Maybe they can do this. So it's kind of a different sort of like problem, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I normally, when I do a skill challenge like that, I let them pick. But the priority of this particular chase sequence was to try to make it feel cinematic. So by pulling that out, by pulling out the players sort of on the fly, having to determine what happens, it's a little bit easier to make it cinematic. So I leaned into that for this. I've never run a chase scene quite like this, so I'll be curious to see how it goes on Tuesday.
I also had the players, Sarah and the rest, fight mirror versions of themselves, just kind of like Baldur's Gate 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was it was a pretty good time, where by the end of it, the barbarian and the fighter were fighting each other's mirror. So the fighter was fighting the barbarian was fighting the fighter.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, the barbarian was like wanting the fighter to miss him so he could kill the fighter's mirror first before the fighter could kill his mirror. So you had players cheering for the enemy.
So would the mirror basically do whatever they did back to the other one?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was just, I was looking at
the
character
just using
sheets
those
on D&D Beyond.
Gotcha.
And using them.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Sarah and the druid were just kind of watching this happen, because they destroyed the fighter, or they destroyed Sarah's mirror instantaneously because of, wizard shenanigans.
Naturally. These things happen.
And same with the druid. So Sarah thunderstepped her and the druid out of there, so that the 4, and they all have the ability to get large.
Okay.
It was a Nightmare Under. It was a full 3-hour session of basically this combat.
Yeah, that is tricky.
And it's not a main story beat. It's kind of was just an encounter for the night before they get to the next plot point. But it also showed the fighter how annoying he is to play against.
I wonder how a 3-hour combat. Yeah, I wonder if that encounter could work with, if like both PCs are fighting, mirrored versions of the other, right? Like I wonder if like the one's attack would, like, you could just like, okay, you did two two strikes or two attacks, and they each were this okay. And then when it came time for the enemy on the other side, you basically just repeated that. Like you just used what they did back at the other. Because they could obviously like then go like, wait, we can control this, right? Like if I choose to not do anything, then the enemy you're facing over there won't either, right? Now obviously there's going to be it's a tricky balance, but like that it would also save you the trouble of having to like run a whole character sheet, but it's probably broken in some way. I don't know. We'd have to try it.
Yeah, it was just a fun little
it's a great
detour
idea.
night of
Totally. Everybody should fight their double at some point in D&D. That's like one of those things, right? You got to fight a dragon for its horde. You should probably dip into the Feywild for a little bit. Fight a beholder. Fight yourself.